All right.
Recording in progress.
Hello, my loves. Welcome to another episode of the Ayurvedic Therapist Podcast. The other day, I posted something on Instagram. Maybe you missed it, but it was about how abuse and personality disorders like narcissism, if you have been in a relationship with a narcissist, and this can be any close relationship, this can be your relationship with your partner in a romantic relationship, or it can be a relationship with your boss or your colleague or a close friend of yours, where you were kind of going on with it because you were either confused, you didn't know what was going on, you thought if you were more kind or more vulnerable, that things would get better. So in this episode, I will focus on speaking to narcissism from a viewpoint, a lens of a romantic partner, only because this is what had happened to me. So I can give you examples of how this showed up in my previous relationship. But please feel free to see if any of these traits ring true to you in any of the close relationships you might have right now with anyone that might be close to you, or in a situation where you have no choice but to listen to the person, like if it's your boss or if it's your manager or someone that you really have to listen to, or maybe it's a parent. So what is narcissism? I mean, this term is being thrown around like, this is a narcissist, she's a narcissist, he's a narcissist. And yes, we can be amongst narcissists, but there are different levels of narcissism, and there are different degrees of it, and there are different types of narcissism. In this episode, I'm only going to focus on specific traits as a general. And I'm going to focus on narcissism as a trait, not a personality disorder, because as a therapist, um, diagnosing someone with narcissism personality disorder is actually a very difficult thing, because 99% of the time, narcissists will not seek therapy. They will not think that there is anything wrong with them. They're unaware of how much pain they cause for everybody else around them. And even if they're dragged into a therapist's office, it's very difficult to diagnose them with some kind of narcissism disorder. So, knowing this, I want to talk to you about you knowing or being in contact with a narcissist who is expressing 20% of the traits, or maybe 50%, or maybe even worse than that, a lot more. In any case, what happens in your brain if you're stuck in that cycle of not having a choice to remove yourself from the situation? So let's say it is your parent and you live with them, or it is your romantic partner and you're stuck in the house with them, or you're stuck in the car with them. And this cycle tends to repeat itself again and again and again. Over time, it's going to change your brain. It's going to cause brain damage. Literally, studies show that the shape of your brain changes. Your body starts releasing so much cortisol, and cortisol is the body's stress hormone. And when your body is stressed, it's going to release some cortisol. And this is a very normal thing. So you can fight or flight. But if this release doesn't stop and the body thinks that it's constantly in a state of fight or flight, there's going to be so much cortisol in your brain and in your body that if it would be spread in between 2 or 3 people, it would be considered high, but it's all within you. I want you to take a moment and think about that. All this cortisol could be between 2 or 3 people, and it would be considered high, but it's all within you. So what this does to your brain, and it causes your hippocampus, a part of your brain that is responsible for your short-term memory and for your decision making, it causes it to shrink. And so, you start forgetting things short term. You start getting really doubtful about, do I make this decision or that decision? And sometimes I would even see this in myself, where at the grocery store, I couldn't decide, would I pick this apple or this apple? Something as simple as that, because your brain has physically changed. And so it's going to also, on a different level, swell up your amygdala. And when your amygdala is swelled up, which is your primary emotions, it's a center for your primary emotions like fear and anxiety and guilt and loss and shame, all of these things are going to be like a red light that are always on. So it's swelled up. You are in the state of fight or flight. You're in the state of hyperactive with all of these emotions always on. So you're going to be in a constant state of survival. This is what anatomically happening and biologically happening in your brain and in your body. So if you're starting to see changes within yourself that are kind of new and maybe related to a specific situation where you think the person might be a narcissist, you're not crazy. There is biological changes happening within you. Now, who is a narcissist? What is a narcissist? I mean, this is kind of a vast question, but my therapist once told me, if a person does not validate you, you tell a story that is really intimate and important to you, and you're being vulnerable, and the person goes, but are you sure it wasn't like, it wasn't you? Are you sure that the other person really was that crazy? I need to hear the other person's side of the story, or anything like that. At that moment where you open up your heart, open up your soul, open up your divine being, the divine spirit that is inside of you, and you take the layers off and you want to be vulnerable and connect to this other human being, and they don't validate you, they don't validate your truth, that is enough to know that this person has enough narcissistic traits that you need to stay away from them. But what happens if you can't stay away from them? And I want to talk about that in this episode. But first, let's talk a little bit about the symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder. In Ayurveda, we have a term called ahankara, and ahankara means ego. Ego is not in itself a bad thing. Ego is what gives us personality. It's what gives us uniqueness. Our personality and your uniqueness is different from the other person's personality or uniqueness. And there's so much to celebrate about that. But ahankara needs to be always pulled into the direction of what the spirit says. Otherwise, the ahankara takes off and the person becomes very self-centered. An ahankara, or ego, that is running wild on its own can look like a narcissist. And there are different types of this narcissism. If the person is connected to their Atman, their spirit, their soul, and they're acting from their Atman, their spirit, their soul, there will be compassion, and there will be love, and there will be empathy. But if a person is just acting on their ego and ego self, it's very hard to see that compassion and empathy and love. The other day, I saw a graphic where ego or ahankara was drawn as a circle. So it's a fully closed circle. The person cannot open up their mind, they cannot open up their heart and see the other person's point of view and change their mind or change their actions. Versus if the person is acting from their Atman, their spirit, their true self, their higher self, their divine self, it is more like a spiral, because it can go, it spirals the feeling, the emotion, that they have the opening in there to understand, the opening in there to change their mind, the opening in there to see the other person's point of view. So that's one of the biggest parts of the difference. So a narcissist tends to be really stuck up in that egoistic self. So it gives them a grandiose sense of self, exaggerating achievements and talents and becoming all about their shell. Really, if you've really met a true narcissist, you know that they're a shell of a human being. Unfortunately, they have lost touch with their true self, with their spirit, with their core, with their vulnerability, and anything they do is like from that shell. They lack empathy. They cannot feel what you feel. They cannot understand where you're coming from. Therefore, they invalidate your emotions, your experiences. When you say to someone, I feel hurt, or I feel like you weren't listening to me, or I feel unheard, I feel unloved, that is your experience. Anyone who says, well, I don't think that's correct, you're right, they're invalidating your experience, and in a way that lacks empathy. They require excessive admiration. So sometimes this comes through as you're telling a story, or you're excited about talking about something, and they say, oh no, let me tell you, oh, I did that once, oh, I did it better, or I have this going on and it's better than yours, kind of thing. And also they want to be the center of attention. So in a group of friends, this can be like, queen bee, literally queen bee, and everyone just attends to queen bee. So if you are in that dynamic, you can be sure that this is a narcissist, and everybody else in that group is often a codependent, because narcissistic codependents attract each other like flowers and bees. And we'll talk about codependency another time, but basically a codependent would be seeing a narcissist as a strong or self-confident, and they're attracted to that. And usually codependents are very empathetic. So when a narcissist is lacking the empathy, the codependent brings into the relationship all of the empathy. So the narcissists also believe that they're special, or they seek out high status people or groups. So they can come across as very entitled, and just thinking that, well, it's me, so everybody else has to go with what I say or what my rights are. They dream of great power, success, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. A lot of narcissists have a lot of fantasies. So they kind of live in a fantasy world, where they think you have to be perfect. So if you make a mistake, shame on you, and they'll shame you, and they will take away, in a way, they cut their love for you, or their attention from you. They're very unreasonable, and let's say you couldn't make it to something that they really wanted you to make it to, they'll make your life hell, and they think that their expectation should be number one. It should have been met no matter what. So unreasonably, they expect a special treatment or compliance from others. They exploit and take advantage of others whenever they can. So they may seem very charming and loving, especially at the beginning, and that's called love bombing. So they love bomb you to show you everything that you want them to be, everything that you want them you want to see in them everything that you've been waiting for. If it's a romantic partner, they will sit there and they learn things about you. You tell them your deep stories, maybe, or you open up with them, or they watch your life and they go, this is what she needs from me, so I'm going to show up as that. And they put this fake persona on to completely love bomb you, but it's all fake, because as soon as they hear a no, or there's a negative comment that comes towards them, their ego cannot handle that, and everything will go upside down. So they also tend to be very jealous people, and they believe that everybody else is jealous of them. They have an attitude of arrogance, and they act that way. So these are some of the traits of narcissism. But I just want you to really pay attention to what I first said with the lack of empathy. That's a really big one. And it goes back, I often say this, it goes back to knowing deep down in your gut, if I'm in trouble or if I need help with life and death, would this person save my life? And if the answer is no, they're most likely a narcissist, or they have narcissistic traits, and you should stay away from them. They tend to have arrogance and selfishness, and they, are unable to see things from your point of view. Don't forget that. So that's a very dangerous thing, you guys. If um, if the person can't really see things from your point of view, it will all turn out to be about them. So in my case, I was very young when I met my narcissist. I was in my 20s. I had no idea what narcissism was. I had never met anyone like that in my life. And this person showed up with their grandiose personality of so much self-confidence. And by the way, narcissists are not self-confident. They're the complete opposite of that. But they show up as if they are. So that's their shell. And so someone who's empathetic and lacks self-confidence will really like that and look up to them and want that to be kind of leader, their person. And by the way, sometimes you might feel this way in a relationship, in a personal relationship, but you're really confident at work or at school. So there are different parts to narcissism and different ways that we can do that or fall for it. And so this person showed up in my life, and they reflected back to me everything that I've ever wanted in a partner. And they love bombed me. They would show up with flowers and gifts, and they loved that I was a professor at a university and educated, and I was opening my own yoga studio at the time. All of the things that later on in life they wanted me to give up. They asked me to give up teaching at the university because it was taking too much time away from being with them. They removed me from all of my close family and friends by targeting them as, oh, this person is this and that person is that. And I would be like, oh my God, I've never saw that before, but now that you mention it, maybe you're right. Because in that stage of love bombing, and then the next stage after that, they really want to cut all of your relationship so that the source of your livelihood is this person. And they do it very slowly. Okay, so don't worry, you're not alone if you've gone through it, and you're not stupid or crazy for going through it. Who would know that a human being could do that, especially if you've been young since this experience has happened to you? So hopefully these are some of the traits that you will remember and you will stay away from. Now, what if you can't stay away from, you're in this relationship and you're kind of figuring out, oh my gosh, am I with a narcissist? What do I do now? Please do not call them on it. It's not a good thing to call them up on it and say you're a narcissist. That will not go well. They will most likely attack you, not respect you, call you names, or worse things. So what I want you to do is be really conscious about how you are doing this. You are understanding this and maybe doing more research on it for your own good and your own well-being and health. Now, if it's someone that you can cut from your life, great. Reduce communication. Don't get engaged and involved, because a narcissist really likes to pull you into their drama and stories. Don't get involved. Just answer with yes, no, and come from only your shell. Now, if you're in it and you cannot get out of it, and you've removed yourself as much as possible from it, you can do something like, and this is, I understand this is very, very challenging and difficult, but you need to remove your divinity from the relationship. You need to remove your spirit from the relationship. How do you do that? It's like almost you do a meditation, you set your intention, you breathe into your heart and you say, you know, my heart and soul, I see you, I see the truth in you, but now I have to communicate with this person that unfortunately will never see the truth in you. So I'm going to show up as only my persona, which means you say, yes, no, it was great. How was your day? It was great. Thank you very much. And as much as possible, not being vulnerable with the person, not sharing your intimate thoughts and feelings, and really acting in a place of protection. So you really need to protect yourself from this person. And inside my program, I teach my clients all these protection methods and techniques with meditation and with journeying and visualization, where we really create a protective layer around ourselves, not to let anything or anyone come in and through. But if you do believe in something greater than yourself, if you have faith and trust in an archangel or God or universe or whatever you have faith and trust in that is a positive source, please bring them in and ask them to protect you from this situation until you can figure it out further. I'm also putting more resources down below this video and audio. And that is Dr. Ramani is her work is beautiful, beautiful. She's a psychiatrist and she's a very educated doctor around narcissism. So watch her videos on YouTube, listen to her podcast, because it goes all around all these stories. If anything I've said to you resonates with you and you think that there's someone in your life that might have a lot of narcissistic traits and that you are maybe lost in the cycle of abuse in a way, then I really encourage you to look deeply and more into this. Another thing that I wanted to mention before we end our time together today is the cycle of abuse. The cycle of abuse. I know that this was something that really helped me in my time discovering and understanding what was happening to me. There are 4 stages of abuse, and that this can be emotional abuse. It doesn't have to be physical abuse. Physical abuse is really easy to find out and to figure out, but emotional abuse is more challenging. So the cycles of abuse split into 4 stages. What are the stages? The first stage is tension. So there's tension in the relationship. During the tension stage, external stressors are present. So maybe there's a financial problem, or there's a problem at work, or you did your project wrong, or you cook the wrong thing, something that is going to make the abuser angry. So there's a feeling of loss of control for the abuser. And during this stage, you, as the abused partner or person in the relationship, you might try to find ways to ease the tension. Maybe you find yourself walking on eggshells, or you're like, okay, I said the wrong thing again, or maybe I said too much. Um, and you just try to make things better. I remember in my relationship, it would get to a point where I would beg him. I'd be like, please, please, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I did, but I'm very sorry. If you find yourself in that situation and the person is like totally in abrupt anger, attacking you, impatient with you, aggressive with you, or annoyed with you, you're in the tension stage. Then something happens. The next stage is incident. So eventually this builds up, this tension builds up, and it is released by the abuser through the power of control. So they will begin to engage in an abusive behavior, whether it's yelling at you or insulting you, calling you names, and then saying they're joking, they were just joking about it, or they would break or remove your possessions. My abuser always took my clothes and threw them out, or if I made them food, they would throw it in the garbage, that kind of thing. Or if I had bought something recently from the store, that would be the thing that would go throw out the window. Things like that are the incident part of the cycle. If they're threatening to hurt you or someone close to you, if they are trying to control how you should be dressing, how you should be spending your money, how you should be cooking, all of these things are the incident. And then, if they're manipulating you in any way, they're saying, maybe they're gaslighting you. Gaslighting is a term where the person, for control, for the sake of control, is going to tell you your reality is incorrect. So you say, oh, remember we did this last week, and that person will literally say, no, that did not happen, you're going crazy. That's an extreme version of it, but anytime that they're manipulating you, or they're denying your reality, that's gaslighting, and you're in the incident level. Then things get so bad and explode, and then some time passes. And the abuser knows that they have created this crazy, tense situation where you might be seeking help. Maybe you're reaching out to your friends or someone you know, or maybe you might be leaving them. So they know that might be coming. So they go to the stage of reconciliation. And reconciliation looks like honeymoon stage, all of a sudden they become nice and they come to you maybe with kindness or gifts or kind words, and all of a sudden everything is so great. And sometimes that really releases the feel good love hormone of dopamine and oxytocin in the brain. And I know that because it would happen to me, and I would be like, oh, thank God it's over, and this will never happen again. Now there's so much love that this will never happen again. But it's really that cycle. Yeah. So this is called trauma bonding in a relationship. And then, so this positive reinforcement can lead to trauma bonding. And then trauma bonding is an unhealthy attachment that the person who causes emotional, physical, and harm creates in the other person. And after this phase, there is calm. During the calm stage, there's justification and explanations, or in my case, the person would just pretend that nothing had happened. Like, all of that just didn't happen and everything's fine. What are you talking about? We love each other. Everything's absolutely amazing. And you would just hope that that calm would last, but then the circle would begin again and it would go up to stage 1 of tension and so on. So please read up on that, educate yourself on that, and see if you are in an abusive relationship, please seek help. There's lots of help out there. There are phone lines you can call. Unfortunately, it's not as easy to seek a therapist, but I'm here for you if you need to give me a quick call or DM me or send me a message on my website. I would be happy to chat with you. Okay, my loves, I hope that you found this episode helpful and the resources down below helpful. And I will see you on the next episode of the Ayurvedic Therapist. Bye, my loves.